Okay, so yesterday we were talking about the four domains of the series examination. So if you look at the first domain, the governance part consists of 26%. So when you say 26%, all you have to do is that 26 into 1.5 because 150 questions. That means approximately 38 questions will come from this domain. And domain 2 is all about the IT risk assessment. So if you look at the previous uh, version contained the four domains where the governance is a separate domain without any weightage. So the risk identification, the risk assessment, risk treatment, risk and control, monitoring and reporting are the four domains which were there. And these two domains are now considered as one domain. That is second domain. And third and fourth domain is considered as one domain. That is third domain. And the governance become first domain. And we are going to have the fourth is information technology and security. This is the difference between that. Here, this technology and security are the new concepts like a BYOD, like cryptography, then we can say big data, then we can say IoT, then was ISO, then TCP/IP, all are then let us say AI, ML, all of them are just discussed over here, not much into technology as such. So new technologies and security related things. When it comes to security, we are looking at CIA, Triad. Then we are looking at let us say encryption as a security. Then various other security elements like you can say like SDLC security, the risk management, and all those things are covered in the fourth domain. So we are going to see each and every domain in a more detailed manner as and when we hit across the domain. So don't worry about it. So today we are going to start with the first domain, which is the governance. Okay, now let us look at the organization governance and let us look at the topics that we are going to cover today. So, okay, let us understand before getting the topic, let us understand what is the governance. Can anyone give me an example or some information insight into what is the governance is all about?
Controlling the organization business, governance, structure of the organization and controlling the organization business in a systematic manner.
Controlling the organization, don't you think that's the role of the management?
Exactly. And governance is a part of also this higher level of the management.
Yeah, that is what exactly is governance? Anybody else other than Raja?
Giving direction for the management.
Okay, giving Deepak is nearer to that, giving directions to the management.
Goals and objective of the governance.
Goals and objectives of governance. So anybody else?
Sir, Karun Gupta here. Sir, it is more towards setting up the protocols, the procedures, and then implementation of it so that everyone follows it. That's what I understand of governance.
Governance, those things are usually management activity, what you said, Karan. But mainly you look at governance. Why are we saying that government, let us say, led by Narendra Modi or led by, let us say, Donald Trump or maybe Joe Biden or maybe the chief ministers? Why do we say governance? Why are we not saying they are managing the country? See, if you look at a country is governed, a state is governed, they are not managed. Why do we say so?
Basically, you have various processes, various laws, various restrictions, dependencies that are associated. So you cannot own and manage everything. So you basically have an oversight with for informed decision making.
Okay, to a certain extent, Steve, you're nearer to that, not exactly the reason. Okay, let us look at the governance. See, if you look at in a country or a state, if you look at the constitution of the country or the state is the supreme thing. That guarantees certain rights to the citizens or the residents, whomsoever they are. Like they have been right of being treated equally, right of having the welfare measures being given to them equally. In reality, it doesn't happen or not. It's a debatable question. That is politics. We are not getting into that. But per se, this is what a definition is all about. That means taking care of everybody in a simple manner, whether regardless of the caste, the creed, the skin color, the religious affiliation, then sex, or maybe even, let us say, educational qualification, the birth, anything. In front of the constitution, every single person is equal. Similarly, governance is something of that sort. So governance in simpler manner is ensuring that, yeah, all the requirements are taken care, everybody's requirements are taken care. Who are these everybody for an organization?
Stakeholders, employees,
The
mid-level management.
stakeholders, only the stakeholders, nobody else. The stakeholders will comprise of your employees, your suppliers, your customers, legal authorities, then your society, anybody who is having the interest in the organization, or anybody who is having any expectations from an organization, or anybody who is affected by the activities of an organization can be defined as a stakeholder. So governance at its core is the ability to meet the stakeholders' needs and expectations and providing value. And that value is translated into the requirements that need to be fulfilled by the management. And we call them as what?
Governance.
Now, governance is what the example is all over I gave. You see, governance simply is the ability for an organization or the ability of an organization to meet the stakeholder requirements or the needs by providing value. And this value will be provided by the senior management or maybe directed by the governing body so that the senior management provides it. What is this called? This is called the organization goals and objectives. Understood? So the goals or objectives of our organization is providing value to the stakeholders by ensuring that the activities are done as per the direction set by the governing body. That is the primary goal of your governance. All of you are very clear about it.
Yes, sir.
There is a very clear distinction between the governance and management. So I will explain few things in the beginning so that the journey becomes easier for you. So when you talk about the stakeholders, who are the stakeholders of an organization? Can you tell me?
Employees, customers.
Okay, so let me put this diagram for all of us. I think all of you can see my screen, right?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So assuming that this is the organization which is represented by the board of directors, the first most important stakeholders are the investors. Without the investors, you cannot start a company. So next is you can say your customers. The customers are the ones who provides the value to you, or you provide them and they provide revenue to you. And the suppliers are also definitely vendors, suppliers, everybody are again a stakeholder. Then next is your employers, employees of the organization. So employees also are very important stakeholders because without a proper manpower, it is not possible for you to run an organization. So you can say employees. Then who else? The regulatory, legal regulatory requirements. The let us say the government or other required the departments that require you to abide by the law, pay your taxes on time, ensure that you're not disturbing the social harmony. And also finally, the society at large. We call them at the CSR or the corporate social responsibility. We have to ensure that we act as a responsible citizen, corporate citizen, ensuring that society is respected, providing value to the society, employment to the society, and not polluting the society. All of these things comes under the society as a stakeholder expecting from the organization. Every stakeholder has some kind of an expectation from the organization. Investors wants more profit. Employee wants more salary. Customer wants a better product at a competitive prices. Supplier wants you to buy their goods, providing their money to them. Legal regulatory requirements ensure that you pay your taxes and all the related compliance requirements properly, and society ensure that you don't pollute and employ them, provide value to the society. Like that, there is a requirement that has to be analyzed, and the board of directors' job is to understand their requirement. And according to COVID, there is a process called EDDM. Evaluate the needs of the stakeholder and determine the balanced agreed upon objective. The objectives. Now, when you talk about objectives, I'll come to that later. They determine the objectives and direct the senior management, which is represented by the CXO group. That is the senior management. That is the CEO, CIO, CFO, the C-suites, whomsoever we talk about. They are the CXO, the senior management, who is supposed to deliver this particular objective to the stakeholders and monitor whether this process is done properly or not. So in short, this is the governance in an organization. So let us see what the ISACA says about it. So governance is the ability to meet the stakeholder needs by providing the value. So this providing the value stakeholder needs is our value, both are, we can say, described as an objective. This we always call as the organization objective. See, this organization objective is, you can say, maybe a profitability, or maybe a position in the market, service offering, maybe it's anything. It can be a single objective or could be a multiple objectives, but it will be determined in consultation with taking care of all the requirements, and in consultation with the management, the objectives are being set. Once the objectives are set and accepted by the CXO, that is the senior management, it becomes the goal for the organization to achieve the current year. So this is achieved through the proper balancing of both the performance and conformance requirements defined by the organization. So what do you mean by performance and conformance requirements? Can anyone tell me about it? See, when you look at the governance as a process, we talk at the highest level, which is called the enterprise governance. And when you talk about enterprise, when I say enterprise, it is the highest level in the organization. So when you talk about the enterprise has to be governed to ensure that the organization objectives are achieved. For our sake of convenience, let us say that the objective for the organization for the current year, I mean the year you have to understand is, say, so current year profit, say, assume is X. The board is saying that you have to achieve 25% more profit. You can say X plus 25 is the objective. Is the objective achieved? Now, the governance process ensures that whatever activities that are supposed to be taken place should align with the organizational strategy. Now, let us understand certain things or the jargons before we proceed further. Number one, I'll ask you some certain questions you have to answer. Now, what is the difference between a goal and objective? My existing students, please don't answer. This is for others. What is the difference between the goals and objectives? Can anyone tell me? Yes, please. I don't want silence. Some answer I need.
Sir, goals are basically what the organization wants to achieve in
Okay.
future. And objectives are the small paths which leads towards the goals.
Okay, but that is a long-term goal, short-term goal. Even I can go have a goal that can be completed tomorrow also, right?
Sir,
So, Colonel Sir, what is your objective? What is your goal for sitting here and listening to my lectures?
Sir, the main goal is to achieve knowledge.
Okay, knowledge. Then what is the objective?
Objective is to
Also to achieve the knowledge.
yes, sir.
Then what is the difference between these two? Ananta,
Sir, the objective are the path which leads to the goals.
again, at the end of the day, you're achieving the goal and objective same only, right? Gaining the
Sir.
knowledge.
Sir,
Yes.
Goal is something usually quantifiable and probably the outcome mostly,
Okay, outcome is knowledge.
right? So objective is probably the measurements or steps we take to achieve the goal.
So what was plans?
So if you look at it from a agile perspective, these are your objectives could be your MVPs, and goal is your actual product that comes out of it.
Yeah, but end of the day, assemble the products is a goal and objective same only, right, Steve?
I mean, objectives
Without
could
a
be
goal.
and objectives could be those smaller components, those MVPs, the minimum viable product that you
Okay.
intend to achieve to achieve the actual goal. The goal is your actual bigger picture, and your objective is step 1, step 2, step 3,
Okay.
my milestones to reach my goal.
Okay. Anybody else other than
Yeah.
what Steve has given? Yes, sir, Abraham.
Goals are like winning the World Cup is a goal.
Okay.
The objective is the process of winning a World Cup. So you have to get selected.
Mhm.
You have to go run this speed. You'll have to get for 1, 2, 3 at this level.
I would say that as a strategy, not as an objective.
The process.
Okay. I will give you the example. All of you are here for why? For what reason are you here?
To complete the certification.
Okay, to pass, let us say to pass series examination.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now when do you want to pass the exam? I told you that every day, say that like we are going to complete the sessions by most probably by 26th or 27th of this month, and by 15th of October you are supposed to write the exam and pass the exam. We agreed in the last class, right? Yesterday, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, what is the goal? Passing series examination. What is objective?
To achieve
So-
it in
The strategy.
So when I say goal is to pass the examination. Okay, pass the exam. Objective is passed by a date, 15th of October. So when a goal, you put a deadline to that becomes an objective. The goal can be a wishful thinking. I want to pass. Okay, that's it. When today or tomorrow, day after tomorrow, next month, next week, next year, it's still a goal. But when you put it a target it is assigned on it, it becomes an objective. Why an organization is always the results are called objective? Because there is a definite timeline. That is the end of the accounting or financial year. Because the organizations, let us say, performances are measured every year based on the financial year. So there is a definite timeline there. That is why they are called objective. Otherwise, there's no distinction between the goal and objective. The ways by achieving, like for example, like small measures to be taken, like Steve said, like bit by bit, item by item come. Those are called plans and strategies. So how you are achieving that? At the end, objective and goal are same thing. Only thing is that objective is more narrow. That is very specific. That is you are having a timeline. That's it. Okay. Now when it comes to, let us say, now goals and objectives are very clear to all of you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now the question is that when you have the objective in front of you, this is the objective you have to try to achieve, immediately you should think something else. Right now, my profitability is X, and the board of directors said that the management should achieve that X plus 25. This is an objective for me. Right now, I'm in 1/1/22 and 31/12/22. I should achieve this. So to go from here to here, what I need?
Strategy.
Exactly. The most important thing when you have the strategy, only then you can do that. So this is called the current state, and this is called the desired future state, or the desired state. Both the way you can call it. Why I'm telling you these things are that whenever you hear an objective hereafter, immediately your antenna should go up. You should say the strategy means there is a end result. Sorry, there is an objective means that's something you have to achieve. For example, all of you have to achieve the passing score by, or you should pass the exam by 15th of October 21. That is your desired state. Now, what is the current state? What knowledge you have? What information you have? So how am I going to go up to this thing? You should have a strategy. This strategy in an organization parlance need to be converted into activities. So if they don't convert them into activities, what will happen? This will becoming only a daydream. In order that this strategy doesn't become a daydream, what do you require? Again, COVID comes to our rescue. The COVID says that the CXO people, the management should ensure that the strategy should be converted into plans, They should be built upon to activities, and the activity should be run and they should be monitoring it. Plan, build, run, and monitor. And to ensure that the objectives are achieved in an organization. So the plans could be immediate term, could be short term, could be medium term, it could be long term. But this long term is less than a year only. We are not talking about more than a year plans here. So how do we do that? By implementing the strategy. Am I right? Are we all agreeing to that? I mean, do you have a clarity of thoughts over here?
Yes, sir.
So now the question is that, how do we do that? So now all you have to remember is that there is something called organization strategy. This is the organization strategy. So whenever we come across an organization strategy in our discussions hereafter, one thing that should strike in your mind is that we are moving from what is the current profit, that is X, to the agreed upon profit, that is X plus 25. So what that means, the governance is again not only just setting the objective. The objective is a set, but at the same time, don't you think that the board of directors should empower the senior management to achieve this thing? Don't you think so? They should not empower them or not?
Yes, sir.
Then how do they do that? That is a process of ensuring policies, standards, procedures are set up, which will be set up by the management only, but to run this and to ensure that objectives are achieved. We will be coming to that again sometime later again. But most important thing is what you require is a organization structure. See, what organization structure means when it comes to the board of directors is that the board sets up the organization structure and they provide, in the sense, they actually set up the authority level or the structure for decision making. So the decision making structure is set up by the board of directors. That means they decide who should take who are authorized to take decisions. That's it. They stop at that. They decide that CEO should take these decisions. And they say these are the decisions to be taken, that's all. But how the decisions are taken, whether those decisions are correct or not, and everything, BOD doesn't come into that. That will be delegated to the CEO. This is what we call the governance portion delegated to the senior management. Because typically the board of directors do not spend too much of time in the company's affairs. Maybe in a typical organization, the board meetings may happen maybe around 10 times a year, and each time they may sit for 4 hours. 40 hours is the time spent plus another 40 hours for reading the background material. Do you think an organization can be managed in 40, 80 hours? They cannot. That is the reason why they don't get involved into that. And in that case, what they do is that they get into the management. I mean, in the sense, what they do is that they delegate this responsibility to the senior management and who actually do the activities. Because the senior management led by the CXO have the organization under their command. The various resources, people, the process, technology, money, budget, time, everything under the control to manage that. But the CEO, the senior management is accountable to the board of directors. And the board of directors are accountable to the entire world. See, the board of directors carry the fiduciary responsibility to ensure that the organization's assets are protected, organization objectives are set up, the decision-making processes are set up, a proper, let us say, a position like the, let us say, the process exists like a policy, standards, and procedures to ensure that the organization run properly. At the same time, having a monitoring mechanism to ensure that these things are done properly. Those monitoring mechanism is what we call about the GRC, governance, risk management, compliance, internal audits, external audits, so on and so forth. We are going to see that when we come to one of the slides here, the 3 lines of defenses. We have a lot of questions there also. So this is what you have to understand that. Now the question is that we talked about whatever the board of directors do now. This is called an enterprise governance at the highest level. Now, we know the enterprise governance is not only stopping with your setting the objectives for the organization, it goes well beyond it. You all understand, right?
Yes,
now, one of the things that, like, if an organization objective has to be achieved, then you need to have a proper alignment of your governance and management activity. So if a proper alignment happens, what are the prerequisites required? Number one, every activity that is carried out in an organization need to align with the strategy of the organization. See, for example, the strategy is X plus 25. What is the objective achievement? Now, this is actually done into a kind of a plans strategies. And this strategy cannot be achieved by nobody is having a Harry Potter's magic wand by using that you are going to achieve the objectives in a day or two. It has to be done by a combination of many activities. So it is being entrusted to the CEO, who is the first among the equals, because always he is the topmost person. And he or she is having the command of the other members. Let us say Chief Operating Officer, Chief Production Officer, Chief Marketing Officer, Chief Technology Officer, let us say Chief Financial Officer, and HR Director. All those positions we are talking about, we call them C-suites, CXO we call them. Now, each and every one will be having operations, they have their own department. Production, they may have their own department. Then marketing, they have their own sales and testing, technology, IT and other things. CFO will be having finance and accounts, HR will be having recruitment, other things. So under that, you'll be having various other structures. And apart from that, we are looking at an operations level. So the strategy is converted into plans. They should be built and run. And this running part has to be cascaded to each and every level. Whatever the operating objectives are set over here. And finally, these people, the food soldiers, carry out the activity. We can say the operations people. Now, all these ops, if you look at, is ensuring that at the end of the day, this strategy is achieved. So any activities carried out here should align with the organizational strategy. Everywhere, not only here, everything should be aligning with the organization strategy. So your governance structure, by putting the organization decision-making process in place, ensure that only whatever it is called strategic alignment. The first and important thing is strategic alignment. Do you all understand? Any questions?
No, sir.
No, sir.
So if you have any questions, please stop me then and there, ask the question. Let us not wait for the end of the classes, you will forget it. And these are the important things you should remember in your mind, because this may not be directly given in your review manuals. I am explaining to you so that you have the basics in your mind strongly, so that you can understand the concept far easily. Because otherwise you will not understand what is a corporate governance or what is a business governance. Second, whatever activity you have to do, like for example, the CFO, the CEO has accepted that he will be doing the X plus 25. That is, he will achieve this 25% increase in the profit. And ladies and gentlemen, achievement of a 25% increase in the profit is not a joke. In fact, any CEO accepting this should be a very, very, let's say, enthusiastic guy. So that means to achieve this extra profit, the CEO has to do so many activities, maybe opening up branches, maybe launching new product, getting globalization, e-commerce, or whatever it is. All these activities, don't you think will involve risk? Don't you think so?
Definitely, sir.
So that means the second most important thing when it comes to the corporate governance is risk management. Correct? And once the risk is managed, the strategy is aligned, ensuring that whether the board of directors should set a process by which whether the activities and the processes which are carried out to achieve this is done properly without stamping on each other's, let us say, rights, and also ensuring that you are not violating any laws. That means you should have an assurance process, right? Am I right or wrong?
Correct, sir.
So assurance process is what we call the GRC or whatever it is, internal audits, external audits. So there are 3 lines of defense. Everything comes under this assurance process. Now, all of this thing, why are we doing? This is all about how do you ensure that the activities are aligned to ensure that, I will say this is again one. What we are trying to do is this is a value delivery. This value, providing value. How do we deliver the value? By ensuring that organization resources, we loosely call them PPT, the people, process, and technology, or the assets of the organization. And these are also called the resources. Apart from that, you also have the resources like time, money, then all those things are to be utilized, and with the constraints like legal, regulatory requirements, etc. So that is, you can say, resource utilization. The resource should be adequately utilized. To ensure that the PPT is providing the value to achieve this. That is what the organization structure operations we talked about. And it's not only that they should be properly utilized, you have to ensure that whether they are doing their job properly or not. That is the monitoring mechanism by the management. That is your performance monitoring. To see whether the performance are optimally tuned to ensure that this value is achieved. So these are the 6 outcomes of a proper enterprise governance. So when you talk about the enterprise governance, you need to have the 6 elements present. In the 3 plus 3 here, what you're seeing here, if these things are present, that means you can have, you can clearly, or you can say easily that yes, you are achieving the objectives of the organization, or you have the higher probability of achieving the organization. Let me put that way, rather than achieving the organization, I would say that higher probability of achieving the organization. Now this I can call as what? Compliance activity. Or I can also say conformance, conformity to risk management, conformity to strategic plan, and conformity to assurance process. Conformance. Or simply I could say this as a corporate governance. Now this, if you look at adding value, resource utilization, performance measure, everything is, you can say, as a performance. So when you say performance, it is again, I would say, instead of corporate governance, I saw as a business governance. So I need provide value also. That is the performance. Usually the CXO group, the senior management will be concentrating on this area. So that is why it's called the business. And this area is taken care by the governance activity, usually the GRC process. So in order for this successful, I would say that like the EG should be having CG and BG together. And this is your say CG and this is your BG, business governance and corporate governance. And they should work in tandem with each other. And they should complement each other. They should not conflict with each other. Like they are like a railway tracks. You can say this is your corporate governance, this is your business governance, where the enterprise governance, the rail runs on these tracks. If any one of them are misaligned, what will happen? Derailment. Your enterprise governance will fail. That is, you are not going to achieve the express 25. It's possible that you have a very good compliance process, wherein the business may not be doing the job properly, but still you will be losing this. You may be having a very good business governance, but risk management, other things may fail because of still the organization may fail. So that means a presence of corporate governance or a presence of a governance, enterprise governance, the business governance doesn't alone guarantee the success of your organization. They should work in tandem and you ensure that like they should complement each other rather than conflicting each other. Many a times you are going to see that because risk management is what we are going to look at. This is what you are going to primarily get concerned over here. That too, we are going to look at IT risk management. So when you talk about that, the way by which risk is managed is by putting up controls. And the controls is from here, setting the controls over here. But when you do that, you understand that the controls are going to choke these things. They are going to reduce the performance. And you should not choke into such a level that the organization should suffer. So that is the reason why you should understand each other. It's not that you have the power to put up a control, you put your control everywhere. Controls are like brakes. They are there to regulate the speed, not to stop the vehicle. Of course, sometimes you have to stop the vehicle, it has to be done, but not all the time. So you are regulating the speed. That is the reason why we need to have the corporate governance and the business governance working in tandem. So that is what the second bullet point talks about. This is achieved through the proper balancing. That is, the control should balance, not stop, the performance and the conformance requirement defined by the organization. You understand this carefully, all of you? Any doubts in the examples or the discussions?
Yes, sir. Sir, in the business governance, the
Mhm.
first one is value.
Yeah, value creation. At the end of the day, X plus 25 has to be achieved, right?
Okay, got it. Thank you.
That is the result. So any other questions?
Yeah,
Yeah.
when we talk about the corporate governance, does it mean that we define risk management things or the controls and the implementation it will performed by the other side of the government? Is it so?
Dattatreya, I lost your voice. There's a lot of breakages. Can you repeat the question if you don't mind?
Am I audible now?
Yeah, you are audible, but there's a breakage. Again, repeat. Yeah.
Okay. My question was like corporate governance, there we define the what is to be implemented, right? And the implementation process takes place in business governance. Is it so?
Not necessarily. Corporate governance is conformance. While you are doing the activities, you have to ensure that activities, number one, align with the strategy. That means whatever you do should be for the benefit of the organization, not against it. Number one. Number two, that whatever activity you do on the business, at the same time, you should take risk into consideration. At the same time, whatever you do, you should ensure that you are trying to ensure that you have to abide by the laws and regulations and other policies and standard requirement that need to be monitored by the assurance process. So that is what it is. They are not going to stop you, they are going to monitor you.
Okay. So the implementation part is under which government?
Implementation parts depends upon both. That is why I said both should work in tandem. Because when you look at risk management, we'll also have control implementation. The control implementation is always with the corporate governance, not with the business governance.
Okay, fine. Thanks.
So that is, see, you don't have to say only they do this do. It is a combination of an effort. But for the sake of, let us say, clarity, we have separated them into a corporate governance and business governance.
Fine.
Any other questions? Okay, so that is the reason why the third bullet point is about achieved by ensuring that a proper risk management capability is in place. So one of the requirement, as we saw in the aside the conformance and process, is the risk management. So if you look at risk management as a process, it existed even centuries ago, millennials ago. And usually the insurance people are the ones who actually did give credence to the risk management because they manage risk in a far better manner than anybody else. You are paying a premium of say a few thousand rupees, and if any of the vehicles are total, they have to pay in lakhs. So they know, they do their calculation regarding how many accidents can happen, then how many the patterns. So there are so many analyses there. They understand the risk, they evaluate the risk, and accordingly they set up the requirement of policy premiums, etc. So if any of the, if you've seen your corporate career, if anybody, I mean, when you go for an insurance, they will ask you, always ask you for the past performance. So in the past, there's no claims. When you say, that means you can negotiate for the reduction in the insurance premium. If there are some more claims out there, that means they will increase the premium because you are a high risk customer. They want high returns. So this is exactly what we are going to do in a different manner in a commercial organization. Please understand that risk is not something which is bad for the organization. In fact, risk has to be taken. X plus 25, 1/4 of an increase in the profit cannot be simply achieved by sitting and daydreaming. The senior management has to take risk. The only thing is that whether the risk can be taken properly with analyzing the consequences and also putting up a mitigate controls in place. If that is done, the positive result, that is the benefits of the result, will be reaped by the organization. And simply that is what your risk management is all about. And when you are talking about in the IT policy, that's it. So risk management program ensures that the organizations should identify, analyze, evaluate, assess, and respond to those threats that pose the greatest risk being faced. Now let us take an example. Let us say cloud computing or moving to cloud. Assume that your organization is actually right now having a in-prem IT setup, or Even let us say private cloud. Private cloud and in-prem are not much different, but again, there are certain technology concepts. Assuming that you want to go to public cloud, don't you think it poses a lot of risk for your organization? Right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
At the same time, if you are able to manage the risk properly and adequately, don't you think the benefits are really high?
Yes, sir.
That is the risk. That is how you have to look at. Because every activity, when you are implementing a new operating system itself is a risk. Operating system may not work properly. But if you are set up it properly, the better features of the operating system and other security functions, you are better utilizing it, right? So there is a positive element and negative element in any activity you do. The risk management is ensuring that we exploit the positive elements and reduce the effects of the negative element if it could happen. To do that, number one, what you have to do? Identify the risk. Without identification, you cannot manage the risk. Then you have to analyze the risk for the likelihood and impact. So when you talk about the likelihood can be defined as a process wherein the threat environment is analyzed. A likelihood is nothing but a threat acting on a vulnerability. So what is a threat? Anything that may have an uncertain impact. That is the reason why do ever use a negative impact. It is uncertain. Only when it realizes we know whether it's a positive or a negative. And which may exploit a weakness or some kind of a exposure with the process in your organization. Where this exposure or a vulnerability can exist, can anyone tell me?
Can you repeat the question, sir?
I said that the threat can exploit a vulnerability or a weakness or some kind of a exposure. So where this exposure, vulnerability or weakness will exist?
In the system.
Yeah, what is a system?
For example, like if there is no antivirus in a system, so it is vulnerable.
Yes, but what is it? Sufferting what? System. System comes under what category? At a higher level. Don't go lower level. Deepak, go to higher level.
Technology.
Okay, again, go higher level. Shifa.
A critical asset.
Assets. Critical
Asset,
everything asset. So vulnerability can be always found on an asset, right? So what do we categorize always when it comes to asset?
Anything which is valuable to the organization.
Okay,
process, technology.
People process technology.
Absolutely,
Yes.
very simple. So we are going to understand that identify whether any threat, the threat landscape, which may have an impact on these elements we call asset, that can result in an uncertain, let us say, kind of a result or a impact to the organization. Why we are uncertain? Because until it happens, whether we don't know it's a positive or negative. Usually, when we comes to the risk management parlance in IT, we consider the negativity only because we are trying to put up a control. So that is why assess and respond to these threats. That was the greatest risk the being faced. So if you look at the first phase in case of your risk management is what? Can anyone tell me? What is the first phase in the risk management? Or the most important? Of course. Okay, identify the risk is fine. How do you identify the risk? What is the first step in identifying the risk?
Scoping.
How do you scope it?
Impact of
when you know what your assets are.
Exactly. First is identify the assets. So first, we are going to see that everything. I'm just covering in a very higher level. We are going to dig deeper into each and every area. So first and foremost, it starts with the identification of assets. And once you identify the asset, then you have to understand if that asset is compromised in any manner, or putting in a different manner, what is the consequence if the organization losing that asset? And this is usually done by a process called the business impact analysis. That is the impact to the business if a particular asset is compromised in any manner. And having said that, like nowadays, in fact, it's not given over here, just a tidbit of information. Nowadays, BIA is also added with something called the PIA. Because earlier we were looking at the business impact, which is a criticality, and sensitivity was given as a kind of a nuisance value. Nowadays, after the advent of your GDPR, where the penalties are extremely high, the privacy impact assessment is also becoming a very, very higher level of a requirement. So BIA nowadays includes the privacy impact assessment also. We are going to look at the criticality and the sensitivity. So the criticality is a profit earning kind of thing, and sensitivity is like a kind of a legal regulatory violations that may have an impact like a embarrassment or kind of a major penalties in your organization. So this is how we are going to look at that. You don't have to worry. We'll cover them in the questions. So this is the process. And why do we want to do that is to understand that each and every asset will be having their own value. So the categorization happens here, prioritization. So once this is done, the next step is to prioritize. That is, when you look at an asset, the impact of the asset, not every asset may pose the similar kind of a threat. Let us take an example of let us say financial information, because you need to understand there are many complications involved in it. Now let us look at the financial information. I'm just giving one simple statement to you. Now you have to understand how critical they are. I would say the profitability calculations. Is it a critical information?
No.
No.
Why? The profitability calculation is not a critical information. Don't you think you have to protect it?
I don't think so.
Why?
It talks about calculation, not giving more inputs, right?
Yeah, I'm saying I'm keeping it vaguely open.
It's
Only
not sensitive
that
in
would
nature.
not be a bigger impact. So you would require more information to
This is
classify
how we
this
are
as
going to get it.
critical.
So that is why we have to get into that. So when I say profitability calculation, we are analyzing, we are finalizing the accounts now. Now tell me profitability calculations. Accounts
It's
being
critical.
finalized. Very critical. If it goes out insider
Yes.
trading, you will be even the people may go to jail. Now, this financial correction, after the results be published, you become a public information. At this point in time, it's extremely critical. After this time, it's open. This is what we call that transient state. You should plan for this also, because until certain point, the information is extremely critical, and beyond a point, it is open. Right? Both are same only, right? At the end of the day. So you have to keep looking at this kind of a thing. That is when you do your calculations, you have to understand this kind of a transit information. Also, why I'm saying is that you have to understand the criticality and timeline, stages, everything comes into picture. So the asset, every asset, information asset or the information processing asset, information plus the technology, IT asset. It is information is also an asset, the technology is also an asset. Both of them have to be protected on the basis of their relative value to the business. That is where the BIA helps, business impact analysis. On that basis, the high critical assets are going to be ranked depending upon the threat and vulnerability combination and the impact. And the impact, the highest impact are taken priority. Why? Because we are not going to have an unlimited budget. The organizations are not deep pocketed when it comes to information security. They are very, very tricky about it. So that is the reason why we need to ensure that the prioritize then limited resources, realize benefits, and ultimately deliver value to the stakeholder. So this is how we operate on a 80-20 basis. Just give me 1 second. These guys keep calling me. I sent a message to you. Just give me 1 second. Okay. So then to prioritize then limited resources, you should realize the benefits and ultimately deliver the value to the stakeholder. That is the risk management activity. And this also bridges the requirements for performance and conformance. So when the management would like to achieve the X plus 25, what will happen? Their main aim is towards ensuring that how quickly they are able to achieve that. And by then, during the process, they may just stamp on others. They may take higher risk, which if realized may put the entire organization down. In order that it doesn't happen, you need a proper conformance mechanism, a proper mechanism that stops them. Hey guys, don't do that because there's a pitfalls ahead, the warning signals, and that is actually done by the risk management function. That bridges the requirement for the performance and conformance and establish sound governance principles and practices, how your risk is managed. So that is your, if you look at your governance, risk governance is all about. Any questions in this particular slide? Because this sets the tone for the entire discussions. The entire 4 domains are based on these discussions. Risk management. So now let us look at what are the topics that we are going to cover. Only now we are going to come to the domain outline itself. I'll be going a bit slow in the initial stages because I need you to understand the concept thoroughly. Otherwise, I can rush through, but if you don't understand the concept, then I'm not adding any value to you. So we are going to look at two activities. What is organization governance and risk governance? Under the organization governance, we are going to look at the organization strategy, goals and objectives, which anyway I have explained to you in the beginning itself. And organization structures, roles and responsibilities. Again, I explained to you in a very higher level. This is how the organization structures are going to be done. The other thing which we are going to look at is the roles and responsibilities. We are going to look at something called RACI. They call it RACI matrix. Responsibility, accountability, consultant, informed, etc. So how the organization structures are set up, how the various roles and responsibilities are assigned in an organization, because it's extremely important in the risk management activities that every roles and, let us say, responsibilities are assigned. Otherwise, the risk may get waylaid. Nobody may look at a risk and you may have big for trouble. And the organization culture. We are going to talk more about the organization culture when we hit upon that, because right now, if I tell you, it will be slightly above your head. Then the policies and standards and the business processes, and finally the organization assets. See, leaving alone the organization culture, if you look at, we are going to look at the strategy here. See, if you look at the strategy, is the high level, let us say, plan roadmap to achieve the goals and objectives. We all know about it. I explained to you. Now, the strategy cannot be achieved by the single person called the CEO. As I told you also, there has to be an organization structure that takes care of this responsibility. That is why you assign the roles and responsibility. This is what I said. The board of directors set up the process of who does what. That is the setting up the let us say the authorization authority structure over here. And based on that, this authority structure and the strategy, each and every element. For example, when you create a policy, for example, let us say this is the CFO, then it is the chief operating officer, this is the chief technology officer, and CFO should have a finance strategy to achieve the organization strategy. So operating a strategy should be there to ensure that. Then technology strategy, IT strategy should be there to ensure that your organization strategy is there. That means the organization strategy of X plus 25 is broken down into various departmental strategies. And these departmental strategies are again need to be complied with. How do you think that the senior management can ensure these activities which is aligning with the strategies can be complied? That means the PPT that runs this particular process should ensure that they comply with the directions of the CEO, or whatever CEO expects them to do, these people should do. How can it be done? That is, CEO should, or the senior management should convey their intent to the operating level people. How this is conveyed? What is the medium in which conveyed? It is what you call the policies. Correct?
Yes, sir.
So the policies are usually, if you look at, if you look at any organizations, the policies can be termed as your constitution, And your standards. For policy to be complied with, you should comply with certain standards. The standards could be internal or it could be external. For example, if you want to be a healthy body, not having any fever, how do you know what you're not having any fever? That means you should know what is a fever. That is, you should know what is a standard body temperature. So 98.4 degrees Fahrenheit is the normal body temperature. This is a standard. So when you are standard means when you're having this temperature or lesser than that, near about that, your policy of having a healthy body is achieved. So a policy is a statement of intent that can be achieved by having a standard in place. You can have an external standard like ISO or COBIT or IATIL, or internal standards like you can have configuration setting standards, or you can have email policy. Those kind of standards which are instead having, like for example, like you can have like every end user computing which is to be purchased from a particular vendor. You did have this kind of a setup. This kind of internal standards also you can have. And the standards again can be achieved by activities. Those activities should be detailed in what we can say is a procedures. This is sometimes we call the standard operating procedures. Every activity should be having a standard procedure, which is step-by-step approach. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If they are actually done, that means you are ensuring that the standards are achieved, in turn which achieves the policies. So the procedures are the vehicles or the activities, actual step-by-step activities that ensures the standards and policies are complied with. So that is what we are going to see here. So when you look at the strategy, immediately things should come into mind. The organization strategy should be broken down into various departmental or a functional strategy. I won't say departmental. This is a finance function. This is operation function, technology function. You may say sales function, chief marketing officer, marketing function. Like that, you can have various, let us say, functions, and each and one of them will be having a strategy. So marketing strategy, I may want to develop my products into these markets and these sectors, and I may want to introduce new products. Demographically, I'm going to change the product. Anyway, whatever way you want to do that. So that is how the policy, the strategies are broken down into the functional strategies. Again, you can say IT strategy. Within IT strategy, you can have various policies. You should have email policy, acceptance policy. You may have, let us say, purchase policy. Then let us say implementation policies. You can say development policy. You can have any number of policies within IT. Within IT also, you can have IT security policies. We are going to see that. Again, email acceptable use policies. Then let us say the asset handling policy. You can have various policies like that which takes care of the information security, internet policy. Examples are like that. So the policies are the vehicles by which the strategies are actually implemented. And to implement the policy, you need a standard. And to implement a standard, you need a procedures. And apart from that, there are something called guidelines which will help you to understand each of them. That is the last level. We call them the guidelines, which gives an explanation and some kind of, let us say, kind of information, then some tools and techniques. Help, it's a kind of help. That's why it's called a guideline. And all of them should understand one thing, that your IT, when it comes to IT risk management or IT security or IT activity, is what is, when you talk about risk in IT, is on what? Is it IT department? Let me put a question in a different manner. What is IT, information technology, and what is enterprise IT?
It's an impact of the organization. And harm of the assets.
Anybody else?
IT is something which helps the business in running consistently.
Okay.
IT is all about technologies and all. And enterprise IT could be considered as the managing that IT.
You are nearer to that, but IT is the department, I'm right? IT department headed by the CIO or the CTO or both. IT, enterprise IT, is the users of IT. Everybody, for example, a production guy using the production system, or a purchasing guy using a purchase application, is an enterprise IT user. So IT is the department that gives support to the enterprise IT, the users of IT. Because we are not looking at IT as a department, we are looking at IT as an enterprise, which is supporting the business. That is why you have to understand the business processes. Because IT enables the otherwise non-IT process and convert them into IT processes. If you look at any typical organization, if you see, there may be hundreds and thousands of business processes that are automated. Financial operations are automated, accounting system, then business intelligence system, decision making, let us say processing systems. You may have a hiring process, then you have a procurement process, you have a sales process, you have an inventory process, payroll process, accounts payable, accounts receivable, logistics, inventory. There are hundreds fixed assets, there are hundreds of processes are there. And those are all the business processes enabled by IT. So if at all I have to put a control, where am I going to put a control? Can anyone tell me? Where is the risk?
Enterprise IT?
Where is the risk? Risk is in the business processes, right? For example, your business process says that patch management is a process. It is managed by, controlled by policies. The policies state that every patch should be applied within 20 days of the announcement of the patch. That's the process, the patch management process, one number the identification of the patch like that. Then each and every should have a control, whether you are right time, your identification, whether you are ensuring that the patches are not applied on production, but you are taking the server out of production and you're putting that in a test environment. Like that, you have controls in each and every process. If the controls are missing over here, what will happen? The patch management process will fail, right?
Exactly.
That is why where the controls are applied. The controls are applied on IT, which is supporting the business processes. At the same time, that means you should understand the business process. For example, another example, easily understandable example I'll give you. Now the procurement process. So for example, let us say Shifor wants to buy let us say, an iPad for himself. Now iPad is a user, Shifor is asking for an iPad and he interested to use it for personal purposes, which is again a risk because the company is losing money. How do I put a control in a physical environment? There is let's say Yadu is his boss and Yadu should approve it. That means Yadu will question you, hey Shifor, why do you want an iPad? Does Shifor try to explain, sir, Yadu, I want to do this and all those things. Yadu says, come on man, you don't require that, I'm not going to approve it. Or maybe there's a process wherein both Yadu says, you're asking only for one, ask for two men, I'll approve, both of us will enjoy. This is also called a collusion. This is a risk that exists. Then how can I avoid? I can one more put HOD. Kiran is the HOD for both of them. She says that, guys, nothing doing, I'm not going to approve. This is a normal control in the normal business process. How do we bring that in the IT process? The workflow, when you create that, I have a checkpoint that whenever there's a Shifor is raising or user, it goes to the supervisor, and both of the approval, if there's any condition made, goes to the HOD, and accordingly the approval happens electronically. This is how the controls are being put. So that means the controls are put in the business processes in electronic manner. That is what we are looking at. That means as a risk manager, you should understand the business process into and thoroughly. Am I right or wrong?
Exactly, sir.
So that is why we are going to look at the business processes also. At the same time, to ensure that the business processes are done properly, you need the support of assets. Correct? The assets, people, process, and technology. See, here I can clearly say in this activity which is automated, people, that is the Shifor, then Yadu, then Kiran, all of the users, they exploit the tech process that is called the business purchasing process, the procurement process, which is a business process, user technology like application, operating system, and infrastructure to ensure the business is, business deliverables are made. This is why we call the PPT. People exploit or use the technology to achieve that. Use the process to exploit the technology to achieve the objectives. So organization assets also very important. How any of the missing, for example, Yadu colluding with Shifor is a major threat. Assets not working properly, what kind of a control we can have. So you have to look at all these possibilities. That is we can say threat landscape is a threat. Then what is the kind of vulnerability we can have? Like that, we have to look at, that is what the organization structure, the assets, etc. process. This is how you're going to understand the threat and the vulnerability landscape. So do you understand this? So if you look at the arrangement of the, let us say, the topics are also done in such a way that like they are actually following a certain this thing, a kind of a proper, let us say, structure. Any questions in this before we proceed?
Yeah, you
No,
mentioned
sir.
about the
No, sir.
collision.
Okay, so just again, we are only in indexes or the topics only. We have to get inside the topic for you to get all the questions. I do understand that. But anyway, let us look at it. 1 minute, my pen stopped working. I cannot rub it out. Yeah, okay.
Okay, I have a question here.
Yeah, please go ahead. By the time I rub it out.
The collision you mentioned about the person 1 to person 2 for that laptop buying thing. And the request goes to HOD, right? So the same thing collision can happen in that level also, right? HOD.
You see, again, that is what we are going to look at that. We are not going to eliminate the risk. We are going to reduce the risk. Whether, even if it happened at the HOD level, how many instances it can happen? See, if you don't put any control at all, everybody like Shifor, Srinivasan, then let us say Abraham, everybody can take a laptop or an iPad and go. When I put a control like a supervisory, maybe it is reducing to say 50%. Still, the management is not willing to accept. That is why they're putting a HOD control. So all of them put together, HOD approving and something going through is maybe 10%. If 10% happens, what is the cost of the company? The loss may be say around $10,000. I can accept that. That is, I'm reducing the risk to an acceptable level. I'm not eliminating the risk.
Yeah, you got the point. That's bang on, Srini, because that is the intent of risk management. We cannot eliminate risk.
We are not going to do that. We are not eliminating the risk. Why? Because when you eliminate the risk, what you are going to do is that, okay, that's a good point. The risk has, I told you, both the positive and negative element. We are trying to reduce this and increase this. If we eliminate this, even this also get eliminated. Understood? The elimination is possible. You can avoid the risk. But again, if you avoid the risk, the positivity also goes. Correct?
Okay.
So the idea is to exploit the positivity and reduce the negativity to the acceptable level. Because over a period of time, if you're trying to reduce the risk further, you may incur more cost. And that at the end of the day, the cost benefit ratio may not be suitable for you or acceptable for you. Understood?
Yes, clear.
So that is the reason why risk management is not making the risk zero. It is reducing the risk to an acceptable level.
Fine. And how do we differentiate the guidelines and procedure?
We'll come to that later. We just gave you the higher level structure solution. When we hit upon this particular heading, we are going to discuss that in more deeper manner. This is just a description I gave you as a higher level thing. So this is organization governance. Now let us look at the risk governance, second topic. Enterprise risk management and risk management frameworks. See, risk management is a major activity. So when you have a major activity like that, you have to cover the entire organization and you need to have a process wherein you have to ensure that your risk in IT risk management covers the enterprise risk management. We are going to talk about that later because right now if I tell you, you will not understand that. Just to give a very small briefing on that, the enterprise risk management is at a higher level. It is the complete company. And it may have strategic risk management. It may have, let us say, your financial risk management. You may have a credit risk management. You have operation risk management. You have HR risk management. You have legal risk management, etc. Now, if you look at everything has a presence of IT in it. Do you believe or not? Because everybody for strategy, for finance, for credit, everybody will be having their own IT systems to work on it, right? Their own IT systems, right? Correct? HR will be having HRMIS. Okay, then let us say strategic risk, they may be a decision support system. Financial will be having financial accounting system. Operations and production systems. Credit will be also having the marketing system. And then sales and CRM system in the case of marketing risk. Right? So I'll put this a marketing risk. That means CRM. Everything is a system, right? That means your IT risk is on enterprise correctly, fully, right?
Correct.
So if the strategic, the decision support system is not working functionally, what happened? Your strategic risk may go for a 6. Okay, they may take a wrong decision. That is a separate management. But IT supporting risk is what, that is what you are, when it comes to risk management, when it comes to IT, which is having a presence in every activity in an organization. That is the reason why IT risk management cannot be seen separately from your business risk. Even though it can be said as IT risk management, but it is intertwined into every business processes which are automated. Am I right?
Yes,
Yes, ladies and gentlemen. So this is what you should understand. That is why we are going to have the governance framework, risk management framework, because the framework gives you a lot of advantage. The 6 elements we talked about earlier: strategic alignment, of course, risk management, assurance process, then value creation, resource utilization, performance measurement. Everything actually is covered by your frameworks. Apart from that, the frameworks also has an advantage. Number one, it ensures that your organization is strategically aligned, risk is adequately managed, and most importantly, the monitoring process is in place. And another important thing is that it looks at an organization in a holistic manner, because you understand when we go into the identification and assessment process, the risk in one area may not only affect the same area, it may have an impact on other areas also. We call it a cascading or a systemic risk. To understand this cascading or a systemic risk, you cannot look at a risk in a piecemeal manner. You have to look at a holistic manner, and that gives the holistic approach will be helped by your framework. If you ask me whether can we have a risk management without a framework, yes, it is absolutely possible, but you will have to spend more time, but then you cannot guarantee the results. So better to have a framework which is available in the market, like a TOGAF, Octave. There are many frameworks available. We are going to discuss about that. Then we have SABSA, Sherwood Operate Business Security Architecture. Then many architecture and frameworks are there that helps you to do that. Even COVID provides some architecture. So, and ITIL provides an architecture. Even ISO 27000 series also provides some kind of a framework. So, again, which framework you should use and what kind of a level of adaptation, everything depends upon every organization specific requirements. Then we are going to look at the 3 lines of defense. The first line, second line, and third line, which is actually promulgated by what we call that the COSO committee of the what you call the internal audit. The COSO means the Committee of Sponsoring Organizations. It is a Treadway committee. A gentleman named Treadway headed the committee, and it was actually somewhere in 1993. It was actually this committee was formed, Treadway committee. The Committee of Sponsoring Organization, that sponsoring organization including AACPA, ISACA, the IIA, the Institute of Internal Auditors, then American Accountants Association, AICFE, that is American Institute of Certificate for Examiners, like that, some of another 2-3 organizations put together. They wanted to completely revamp the internal control and, let us say, processes in an organization. And they appointed this particular committee to examine into the present practices post your, let us say, IT and related environment. And they came about this framework called the COSO framework. The name struck as such. It's a Committee of Sponsoring Organization framework. The COSO framework mainly ensure, suggest, apart there, the COSO framework, you can search in the internet, you will get a full framework there. But main thing they say that like the job of the control, that is the requirement for the internal control in an organization can be broken into 3 levels. What they say, the first line of defense, the first requirement or the primary requirement for any organization to talk about a control risk with the operations. The person who does the job is actually supposed to take care of the control activity within the job. So that is the operations level control. People who have done the CISA certification, the first domain, the end, we can say there's something called the control self-assessment. This talks about that only. The control exercised and reviewed by the operating people, the people who do the job, the foot soldiers, when they monitor their own control, it is called the first line of defense. And within an organization,
business processes, correct?
This is not the business, but this is the framework as given by the COSO.
No, sir. These are the first line will be the business processes, correct?
Absolutely, the operation people, the foot soldiers who do the job.
Okay. Okay.
The second is that there should be an independent mechanism within an organization that monitors the process automatically, independently. And they are also called that, let us say, information security, risk management. Then you can say like a GRC, compliance, any other compliance activity. All these things are called your second line of defense. Third line of defense is your independent internal auditors, your external auditors, your PTA, penetration testing, VA. These things are called the third line of defense, where these people will not be having any operational responsibility, but they have independently reviewed this kind of activity. They are called the third line of defense. And at the end of the day, this is to be the ownership is with the board of directors plus the senior management. This is the three lines of defense. You need to be extremely knowledgeable about the three lines of defense. We'll be looking at this thing. I will also give you I'll be giving a lot of questions because I see a lot of questions nowadays coming in the serious examination of the three lines of defense. We'll discuss all the questions, don't worry about it. So this is what about the three lines of defense, how the controls can be put into the operations and how the controls are exercised and monitored to ensure that the risk is remaining with the acceptable level. That we are going to see that in when we talk about risk identification stage. Don't worry about it. The next is your risk profile. So can anyone explain me what you mean by risk profile is all about?
And this could contain various factors like identifying the risk, analyzing the risk and see what the risk is all about with the assets we need to be protecting.
Inherent risk.
Okay, Shifa, I'm asking another question to you. What is your profile, Shifa? Your professional profile?
Auditing.
Okay. What are your qualifications?
MBA.
MBA, CISA?
Yeah, MBA, CISA, and then bunch of other certifications.
Okay. So after 15th of October, you will learn CRE also to that, right?
Yep, hopefully.
Not hopefully, definitely. I don't like the word hopefully, you know that, right?
Most definitely.
Yeah, good. Great. So that means, Shifa, you as a person, did you change? No. But your profile changed. When you say profile means what you are exposed or what is you are having at that point in time. So risk profile is that, very simply put, the risk an organization is exposed to at that point in time. It is what I can say a snapshot. A picture, a snapshot. Snapshot of a risk at a given point in time, because we are going to do the risk assessments in a point in time. Today, if I do the risk assessment, what my organization is exposed to risk is called the risk profile. We have to understand that, because we have to repeat this many times in a year depending upon the organization's risk volatility, and to ensure that this risk profile is migrating towards the acceptable level of risk, that is the risk acceptance or risk appetite levels. So risk appetite, understanding the risk appetite is also a very important thing in an organization. Understood, Shifa? Understood everybody? Any questions?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Great. So next is risk appetite and risk tolerances. We'll discuss this in more detail. I don't want to cover this. There's a lot of interesting things there. So we'll discuss it when we come to that. The risk appetite, I'll just give you some simple thing alone, is the most important thing in your entire organization when it comes to your risk management, because it sets so many requirements. For example, it sets the baseline security requirement. It sets the control objective requirement. It talks about the requirement for your business continuity. It talks about the requirement for your disaster recovery, incident response planning, control implementation. Then let us even risk-based auditing is based on your risk appetite. If risk appetite is not calculated properly, whatever I explained will also not be calculated properly, including your information security. Your information security is mainly the objective. The information security strategy itself is to reduce the risk to an acceptable level. That means if the acceptable risk is wrong, every other activity is wrong. So that is why you need to be very much concentrating about the risk appetite. And the organization culture has a major impact on the risk appetite. That is why I said organization culture will discuss in a daily different manner when it comes to that. That is why the governance and manage the risk governance organization should go together. And legal, regulatory, and contractual requirements. See, risk is there in not complying with the regulatory things also. What will happen if you violate GDPR? What will happen if you violate PCI DSS? What will happen if you violate HAPAA? What will happen if you violate CCPA? Then what are the requirements and how do we understand the requirement? So here, simply put, what you're trying to do is that you are taking the compliance requirements as any other risk and putting the controls to ensure that it is monitored and properly adhered on time. And finally, we have to understand the professionalities of a risk management. Once you pass the serious examination, you're going to become a professional. So you should understand as a professional what is your duties and responsibilities. So this is what we are going to cover in the first domain. Any questions, ladies and gentlemen? I know that we have not gone beyond a slide or a couple of slides here, but today I think we covered a lot of basics. Don't you agree?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
So these things I told you, right, like initial stages, I'm going to take a lot of time to ensure that you have a clear basics in your mind. See, many a times, like even though I'm going to give you a lot of questions to you, which will help you to pass the exam, in spite if you don't have the questions also, the basics knowledge you're gaining from the class should be enough for you to pass the examination. Because if you look at any questions and if you're understanding the basics behind the questions, just a matter of fact to apply them and get the answer done. Very simple. So the basics should be extremely or extraordinarily strong for you. So take your time, understand the basics, then the entire journey is very simple. So that is why I'm taking a lot of time explaining these things. The first chapter, the governance, and the second chapter is going to be taking a lot of time. Third and fourth chapter will be going fast. So next is your organization governance overview. We'll just look at the slide only because we have 5 minutes left. After that, the explanation part we start with tomorrow. So governance is what? Is the accountability. So as I said, the accountability rests with whom in an organization? Who is accountable? Who is finally accountable for in an organization?
Board of directors.
BOD.
Absolutely.
Board of
Absolutely.
directors.
Leadership.
Exactly. So the board of directors are the ones who are finally accountable for everything. So that is what the accountability is also talk about the conformance and performance. Right? So the responsibility is with the senior management to ensure that the conformance and performance is taken care by the organization as such. So accountability is with the BOD and performance is with the senior management. We just saw that in the I already explained this to you in the initial slide. So how the conformance and performance actually comes into position. So next, governance and management compared. We take it up this particular slide from tomorrow onwards because I think it's too heavy for you right now to consume whatever we covered so far. I try to put the recording by today evening itself. So before coming to tomorrow's class, try to at least listen one time because the concepts are very, very important for you to understand. You have to be fresh with that. So please listen to the recording at least once and so that we can have a fruitful discussions tomorrow. Before we wind up the class, any questions from your side?
So just one off-topic question. Like the in CISA, you provided the CISA manual. Will you be giving the same for CRISC?
Should I give you?
Yeah, will you be giving that, the manual?
Should I be giving that?
Yes, please.
Yes, sir.
It is not at all available.
Need...
It is not at all available anywhere. What will I do?
Oh, it's not?
They're not required, sir.